She trusted the diplomat who promised her forever. Then he poisoned her wine at a peace banquet, selling her life for immortality. When the vampire king caught her dying body, his words were ice. Don't look at him again. He sold you to me. What she didn't know, survival would make her more dangerous than the betrayal that killed her. The crystal chandeliers above table 17 cast fractured rainbows across the white tablecloth, and Evelyn Cross couldn't shake the feeling that she was sitting at her own funeral. You're fidgeting, Adrian whispered, his hand finding hers beneath the table. His palm was warm, steady. Everything hers wasn't. I'm fine, she lied, watching the servers glide between tables like ghosts in pressed uniforms. The Celestine was the most exclusive restaurant in the city, literally. It occupied the 97th floor of the Obsidian Tower, where the clouds themselves seemed to bow at the windows. Tonight it was neutral ground. A peace banquet. Humans on one side, vampires on the other, and journalists like Evelyn scattered throughout to document history in the making. Adrian squeezed her hand. This is what you wanted, remember? Front row seat to the treaty signing. Your article will make your career. He was right. She'd fought for this assignment, argued with her editor, promised exclusive angles. But now, watching the vampires arrive in their dark suits and darker smiles, she wondered if some doors were better left closed. The Vampire King entered last. Darian Voss didn't walk. He arrived, as if space itself rearranged to accommodate him. Tall, with silver-streaked black hair pulled back from a face that could have been carved from marble, he moved with the kind of grace that made everyone else look like they were stumbling. His eyes swept the room once, pale gray and utterly emotionless, before he took his seat at the head table. Evelyn's breath caught. She'd seen photos, of course. Everyone had. But photographs couldn't capture the weight of his presence, the way the air seemed to thin when he looked at you. Or through you. Relax, Adrian murmured, lifting a glass of wine. He's just a man. He's 400 years old. A very old man. Then Adrian grinned, that boyish smile that had made her fall for him 6 months ago. Young, ambitious, charming, he was everything she thought she wanted. A diplomat's son with connections that opened doors and a future bright enough to blind. The servers began their choreographed dance, placing crystal goblets before each guest. Red wine for the humans. Something darker for the vampires. Evelyn watched her glass fill with burgundy liquid, rich and inviting. To new beginnings, the human ambassador announced, rising from his seat. To peace between our peoples. To the end of ancient fears and the start of mutual prosperity. Chairs scraped. Glasses lifted. Evelyn raised hers, the wine catching the light like liquid rubies. To peace, Adrian said beside her, his eyes meeting hers with an intensity she'd never seen before. To everything we've worked for. Something in his tone made her pause. Too final. Too rehearsed. But everyone was drinking, and the moment swept her along. She brought the glass to her lips. The wine touched her tongue, and the world exploded into fire. It burned. Not like alcohol but like acid, like molten metal poured directly into her veins. Evelyn's glass shattered on the table as her hands flew to her throat. She tried to scream but her vocal cords seized, locked in silent agony. Around her chaos erupted. Shouts. Screams. The crash of furniture. But Evelyn couldn't see any of it. Her vision had narrowed to a tunnel of red-tinged darkness, her body convulsing as something foreign invaded every cell. Her heart hammered against her ribs, too fast, too hard. Then stuttered, skipped, began to slow. I'm dying, she thought with strange clarity. Poisoned at a peace banquet. How poetic. She was falling, the marble floor rushing up to meet her. Then arms caught her. Cool arms, impossibly strong, cradling her against a chest that held no heartbeat. Through blurred vision, Evelyn saw Darian Voss looking down at her. His expression hadn't changed. Still that terrible, beautiful mask of indifference. But his grip was gentle as he held her upright, one hand supporting her back, the other at her wrist, feeling her dying pulse. Vampire blood, he said, his voice like winter wine through empty halls. Undiluted. Inhuman wine. Evelyn's gaze slid sideways, searching desperately for Adrian. He would help. He would save her. He loved her. She found him. He was standing 3 feet away, hands at his sides, perfectly still. No horror on his face. No shock. Just waiting. Watching her die with the patience of someone who'd known exactly what would happen. Their eyes met. And Adrian smiled. It wasn't the warm smile she knew. This one was cold, calculated, triumphant. The smile of a man watching his carefully laid plans fall perfectly into place. "I'm sorry, Evie," he said softly, "but some opportunities only come once." The betrayal hit harder than the poison. Evelyn tried to reach for him, to demand answers, to scream at him, but her body no longer obeyed. She was a passenger in her own flesh, feeling everything shut down system by system. Darian's grip tightened. When he spoke, his voice was so quiet only she could hear it, words meant for her alone as darkness claimed her vision. "Don't look at him again." Each word was precise, sharp as broken glass. "He sold you to me. Your life, your future, your soul. All traded for a drop of immortality and a seat at a table he'll never be worthy of." The world tilted, fell away. Evelyn's last conscious thought wasn't of the poison, or her dying body, or even her career going up in flames. It was of Adrian's smile, cold and satisfied. The face of the man she'd loved revealing itself as the mask of a stranger who'd never loved her at all. Then darkness swallowed everything, and Evelyn Cross died at table 17 in the most exclusive restaurant in the city. Almost. Evelyn woke to silence so complete it felt like being buried alive. Her eyes opened to vaulted ceilings lost in shadow, illuminated only by moonlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. She was lying in a bed that felt like clouds wrapped in silk, but her body felt wrong, heavy and weightless at the same time, like she was learning to exist all over again. She sat up slowly, and the world moved with her in nauseating clarity. Every detail razor-sharp. The individual threads in the black curtains, the dust motes dancing in moonbeams, the faint scent of old stone and older blood. "You're awake. Good. I was beginning to think I'd miscalculated." Evelyn spun toward the voice too fast. The room blurred, then snapped back into focus with dizzying precision. Darian Voss stood by the window, hands clasped behind his back, watching her with those pale gray eyes that revealed nothing. "Where?" Her voice cracked. Her throat felt like sandpaper. "Where am I?" "The Citadel. My home." He moved toward her with that unnatural grace, stopping at the foot of the bed. "You've been unconscious for 3 days. Your body was fighting itself, human cells trying to reject vampire blood while vampire blood tried to consume human cells. It was loud. I died." The memory crashed back. The wine. The fire in her veins. Adrian's smile. "I felt myself die." "You began to die," Darian corrected. "I stopped it. Midway through the transformation." Evelyn looked down at her hands. They looked the same freckles, same chipped nail polish on her thumb. But when she pressed them to her chest, searching for her heartbeat, it took 3 full seconds before she felt the next thump. Then 3 more. "What did you do to me? Saved your life. Or ended it?" Perspective matters. Darian tilted his head, studying her like she was a particularly interesting equation. "You're half-turned, stuck between worlds, neither fully human nor fully vampire. Congratulations, you're an abomination by both species standards." The word hit like a slap. "Fix it. Turn me back." "There is no back. Only forward." He moved to a side table, poured something dark into a crystal glass. "Your boyfriend made sure of that." Adrian. The name alone sent fury coursing through her veins, hot and electric. "Why?" The question came out broken. "Why would he? We were supposed to get married. He said he loved me." "Love?" Darian said the word like it tasted bad. "He loved power more. Your Adrian approached my court 6 months ago with a proposal. Deliver a human journalist to us, someone trusted, someone who could get close to the peace talks. In exchange, he wanted immortality and a position in the new order. 6 months ago, the exact time they'd started dating. Every romantic dinner, every whispered promise, every time he'd held her lies. All of it carefully constructed bait in a trap she'd walked into willingly. Evelyn's hands clenched the silk sheets. You knew he'd poison me and you let it happen. I knew he'd try. Darian's expression remained neutral, but something flickered in his eyes. I didn't know he'd be stupid enough to use pure vampire blood. That amount should have killed you instantly, not triggered a transformation. He botched it. Wanted to impress my court with his ruthlessness but didn't understand the dosage. Sloppy. Amateur. Insulting. So you saved me to spite him. I saved you because... He stopped, jaw tightening. Your wine glass fell. You should have reached for your throat, your chest, begged for help like anyone dying would. But in that half second before you collapsed, you reached for him. Even poisoned, even dying, you reached for the man killing you. Darian stepped closer, and Evelyn could see ancient weariness in his face. Centuries of disappointment crystallized into cold stone. Then you saw his face. Saw the truth. And the way you looked at him, he paused. Your eyes didn't beg. They burned. Even as the poison took you, you weren't a victim. You were a woman deciding how to survive what came next. That kind of will is rare. I despise traitors more than I crave blood. And I refuse to let one create a death he doesn't deserve credit for. The explanation was clinical, practical. But underneath, Evelyn heard something else. Something almost like respect. What happens now? She asked. Darian handed her the glass of dark liquid. Blood, she realized. Animal by the smell. The fact that she could tell the difference terrified her. Now you choose, he said. Stay under my protection and learn what you've become. Or leave and face Adrian's world, where both humans and vampires will hunt you for the monster you are. Evelyn took the glass. Her hand didn't shake. Teach me, she said quietly. Teach me everything. And when I'm ready. Don't look at him again, Darian interrupted, his voice sharp as a blade. Not until you can face him as what you are now, not what you were then. Evelyn met his gaze and nodded once. She drank. The blood tasted like rage and iron and survival, and for the first time since waking, she felt truly alive. Training began at midnight. Darian led Evelyn through corridors of black marble and ancient stone, down into the depths of the citadel where torches burned with blue flame, and the air tasted of centuries. They stopped in a vast chamber with walls covered in weapons, swords, daggers, things she had no names for. Hit me, Darian said, turning to face her. Evelyn blinked. What? You wanted to learn. Lesson 1. Understand what you are. He spread his arms slightly, offering himself as target. Hit me as hard as you can. Felt like a trap. But anger still simmered beneath her skin. At Adrian. At herself for being so blind. At the universe for turning her into something that didn't belong anywhere. She channeled it all into her fist and swung. Her knuckles connected with his jaw with a crack that echoed through the chamber. Darian's head snapped sideways. He straightened slowly, working his jaw, a thin line of dark blood at the corner of his mouth. His eyebrows rose slightly, the most expression she'd seen from him. Interesting, he said. Again. This time Evelyn didn't hesitate. She struck faster, harder, putting her whole body behind it. Darian blocked, his forearm meeting her wrist with enough force to shatter human bones. She felt the impact vibrate through her arm, but nothing broke. Good. You're stronger than you think. He moved like water, suddenly behind her. But strength without control is just violence. And you're not here to be violent. You're here to be precise. For hours he pushed her, teaching her to move without sound, to strike without telegraphing, to sense the air pressure changes when something moved behind her. Her body responded in ways that should have been impossible. Too fast, too fluid, every sense amplified to overwhelming clarity. You're holding back. Darian observed as dawn approached. They'd moved to hand combat, circling each other on the stone floor. Still afraid of what you might do? I'm not afraid. Liar, he struck without warning, a blur of motion that should have caught her throat. Evelyn's hand shot up, catching his wrist mid-strike. They froze, locked together, his arm trembling with restrained force against her grip. There, he said softly, a hint of satisfaction in his voice. That's the real you. She released him, stepping back. Her hands were shaking now, not from fear, but from the adrenaline of almost violence, the thrill of matching strength with something that could tear her apart. Why are you doing this? The question burst out before she could stop it. Really? You said you despise traitors, but you barely know me. I could be anyone. Darian was quiet for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he walked to the wall, retrieving a sword that looked older than countries. 200 years ago I had a brother, he said, not looking at her. Younger, ambitious, brilliant. He fell in love with a human woman, a merchant's daughter who smiled like summer. He wanted to turn her, make her immortal so they could be together forever. He ran his thumb along the blade's edge, drawing a line of black blood. She agreed, said she loved him, but she'd been sent by vampire hunters, paid to get close, to learn our weaknesses. The night of her transformation, she led them straight to us. My brother died protecting her, still believing she'd loved him even as she drove a stake through his heart. Evelyn's breath caught. Darian. I hunted them all, he continued, voice flat as winter ice. Every hunter. Every person who'd paid her. Everyone who'd known and said nothing. It took me a decade, but I found them all. And when I was done, do you know what I realized? He finally looked at her, and his eyes held ancient pain buried under centuries of control. That betrayal only works because we choose to trust. And the capacity to trust, even after being destroyed by it, that's not weakness. That's the only thing that separates us from monsters. He held out the sword. You reached for him even while dying. That means you still have something worth protecting. Something Adrian's betrayal hasn't destroyed yet. Evelyn took the sword. It was heavier than she expected, perfectly balanced. Teach me to listen to silence, she said, remembering his words from the restaurant. To read hearts without words. A ghost of a smile touched Darian's lips. That's lesson 2. And it starts with learning to hear your own heart first. He moved toward the chamber exit, then paused. Tomorrow night there's a gathering. Political theater, vampires and human nobles pretending the peace talks weren't a disaster. You'll come with me. Why? Because Adrian will be there. Darian's voice went cold as a grave. And it's time you saw what he bought with your life. Evelyn gripped the sword tighter, feeling its weight settle into her palm like it had always belonged there. Good, she said quietly. I'm ready. She wasn't. But she would be. The ballroom glittered like a jewelry box lined with predators. Evelyn stood at the top of the marble staircase, watching masked figures swirl below in a dance older than nations. Everyone wore elaborate masks. Tradition dictated anonymity at these gatherings, though she suspected everyone knew exactly who everyone else was. The masks were just theater, permission to pretend civility, while sharpening knives behind silk fans. Stay close, Darian murmured beside her. He wore black on black, his silver mask carved to resemble a wolf's face, elegant and menacing. And remember, don't look at him again, Evelyn finished. I know. Her own mask was white porcelain edged with gold, covering the upper half of her face. Darian had chosen her dress, deep crimson silk that moved like water, cut to suggest danger rather than vulnerability. She looked like someone's dark fantasy. She felt like someone's cruel joke. They descended together, and conversations stuttered in their wake. Evelyn heard the whispers following them like smoke. The half-turned girl. King's new pet. Abomination if you ask me. Darian's hand found the small of her back, steady and territorial. Let them talk. Words are the only weapons they're brave enough to use. The evening crawled by in false smiles and careful conversation. Evelyn played her part, the mysterious woman under the Vampire King's protection, neither confirming nor denying the rumors swirling around her. She danced with nobles whose hearts beat too slow, spoke with diplomats whose pulse raced with fear, and all the while, she searched for one specific heartbeat. She found it near midnight. Adrian stood by the champagne fountain, surrounded by admirers. Even with his mask, gold ostentatious, decorated with rubies, she knew him instantly. The way he held his glass, the tilt of his head when he laughed. Everything achingly familiar and now irreversibly poisoned. But something was different. His movements were too fluid, too graceful. His skin had the faint luminescence of moonlight. When he smiled, she caught the glint of fangs. He'd gotten his wish. He was one of them now. There you are, a woman's voice, smooth as honey laced with arsenic. A vampire in an emerald gown materialized beside Evelyn, her black mask studded with diamonds. The famous half-blood. I'm Celeste. Tell me, how does it feel to be neither one thing nor another? Freeing, Evelyn replied coolly. No expectations to meet. No rules to follow. Celeste laughed, sharp and brittle. Charming. No wonder Darian keeps you close. Though I wonder, the half-turned always choose wrong. Too human to understand our world, too monster to return to theirs. Adrian understood that. It's why he did what he did. Ice crystallized in Evelyn's veins. You knew. You knew what he planned. Everyone knew, darling. It was deliciously inevitable. Celeste's smile widened. And now he's proof that ambition, properly applied, gets rewarded. While you, she gestured vaguely at Evelyn. You're proof that trust is just another word for fool. Before Evelyn could respond, music swelled. A waltz beginning. Celeste melted back into the crowd, leaving Evelyn standing alone, fury and humiliation burning through her chest. Then Adrian was there. He appeared at her elbow as if summoned by her anger, champagne in hand, that devastating smile she'd once loved now twisted with something cruel. Evelyn, her name in his mouth sounded like ownership. You look different. Dying suits you. Every muscle in her body screamed to attack, to tear that smile off his face. But Darian's lessons whispered through the rage. Control. Precision. Strike when they don't expect it. Adrian, she kept her voice neutral, empty. Congratulations. You got what you wanted. Not quite. I wanted you dead, actually. This, he gestured at her, wasn't part of the plan. But I suppose we work with what we're given. Why? The question escaped before she could stop it. Was any of it real? Adrian tilted his head, considering. Does it matter? You were useful. A journalist with access, with trust, with just enough ambition to be manipulated. The relationship was convenient. Something inside Evelyn cracked. Not her heart, that was already broken. Something deeper. The last fragment of the girl who believed in love and partnership and shared futures. You're right, she said softly. It doesn't matter. Smart girl. Now if you'll excuse me. He started to turn away. Adrian, her voice stopped him. One question. Did you ever wonder if I'd survive? He looked back and for just a moment, she saw uncertainty flicker across his face. No. Why would I? Evelyn smiled and it felt like baring fangs. Because survival, she said quietly, is so much more dangerous than death. Before he could respond, Darian was there, his presence like a storm front moving in. Don't look at him again, the Vampire King said, his voice carrying enough command to stop conversations 3 tables away. His gray eyes locked on Adrian with predatory focus. He's not worth your attention. Then quieter for her alone. Come. We have work to do. Darian led her from the ballroom through a hidden door behind a tapestry, down spiral stairs that descended into the earth itself. The citadel's undercity sprawled beneath the elegant halls above. A labyrinth of ancient catacombs, forgotten shrines and passageways carved when the world was younger and darker. Where are we going? Evelyn asked, her voice echoing off stone walls lined with symbols she couldn't read. Somewhere they won't find us. I have informants at the gathering. Adrian's been reckless with his plotting. He's joined the Crimson Schism. The what? Darian's jaw tightened. Rogue vampires who believe I've grown weak, that making peace with humans is betrayal of our nature. They've been quiet for decades, but Adrian's given them something they didn't have before. A reason to act now. They emerged into a vast chamber lit by phosphorescent fungi clinging to the walls. Ancient coffins lined the space, some cracked open, others sealed with chains that had rusted over centuries. In the center stood a stone table covered with maps and documents. They're planning an attack, Darian continued, spreading out papers covered in cramped handwriting. On the Citadel. 3 nights from now, during the blood moon when my powers are at their weakest. Adrian's been feeding them information about guard rotations, weak points in our defenses, even the location of my private chambers. Evelyn studied the maps, her enhanced vision picking out details in the dim light. He's thorough, I'll give him that. He's desperate. Darian planted his hands on the table, leaning forward. The schism promised him a position of power, but only if he delivers my head. He botched your murder, so now he needs to prove himself with mine. So we stop them. We won't stop them. We'll let them come. Darian's eyes met hers, calculating. But we'll control where and how. I'll leak false information, make them think I'll be alone in the Eastern Tower, vulnerable. Meanwhile, you'll infiltrate their ranks. Evelyn's eyebrows rose. They know what I am. They won't trust me. They know you're half-turned and under my protection, which means you're the perfect turncoat. He pulled out another document, a forged letter in elegant script. You'll claim I've been using you, that you want revenge for what I've made you. Adrian will believe it. He thinks betrayal is universal because it's all he knows. The plan was dangerous, brilliant, insane. What if they kill me instead? They won't. You're too valuable. A symbol of my failure. Proof that I create abominations. Darian's voice softened almost imperceptibly. And because I'll be watching. Every moment. For 3 days they prepared. Darian taught her to mask her heartbeat, to lie with her body language, to become whatever the observer expected to see. They rehearsed scenarios until Evelyn could recite her false grievances in her sleep. But in the quiet moments between strategy sessions, something shifted between them. Late on the second night, Evelyn found Darian standing before an ancient mural. Faded images of vampires and humans living side by side, so old the paint had nearly merged with stone. Is that what you wanted? She asked. With the peace talks. Once he didn't turn around. I'm tired, Evelyn. For 100 years of fighting, hiding, feeding, ruling. I thought if we could just coexist, share the world instead of bleeding it dry. He laughed, bitter. Naive. It's not naive. It's just hard. And people like Adrian make it impossible. Darian finally looked at her, and the exhaustion in his face was staggering. Do you still think of him? Dream of him? The question surprised her with its rawness. Yes, she admitted. Not the him that exists, the him I thought existed. I dream about who I thought I was with, and I wake up angry at myself for grieving a ghost. Darian moved closer, his presence overwhelming in the confined space. Dreams fade when you feed on strength, not memory. The girl who loved him died in that restaurant. Let her stay dead. Is that what you did? Let your brother stay dead. His hand rose, fingers ghosting near her cheek but not quite touching. Every single day for 200 years. It doesn't get easier, but it gets different. The pain transforms into something you can use. Evelyn could feel the cold radiating from him, could hear the absence of his heartbeat, could see centuries of loneliness crystallized in his eyes. On impulse, she reached up and placed her hand over his chest where a heart should beat. What are you doing? His voice was rough. Checking if you're as dead as you pretend. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Darian's hand covered hers, pressing it harder against his still chest. Deader. he whispered. But not as dead as I'd like. The moment stretched, fragile and dangerous. Then Darian stepped back, the mask of the Vampire King sliding back into place. Tomorrow night you approach Adrian. Make him believe you. And Evelyn. His eyes held hers. Don't die. I'm not interested in saving you twice. She smiled. Then teach me not to need saving. They spent the rest of the night sparring until dawn broke above them, unnoticed and irrelevant in their world of stone and shadow. The Celestine looked different at night without the pretense of peace. Evelyn stood across the street, staring up at the 97th floor where lights blazed in windows that had once reflected her dying face. Adrian's forces had claimed it as their headquarters, poetic and arrogant. The place where the betrayal began would be where it ended. Remember, Darian's voice whispered through the tiny device tucked in her ear. You're desperate. Angry. You hate what I've made you. Not much acting required, she muttered, adjusting the black coat that hid the weapon strapped to her body. The forged letter crinkled in her pocket, evidence of her defection, written in her own hand per Darian's instructions. She crossed the street, rode the elevator that climbed through clouds, and stepped into chaos disguised as celebration. The restaurant had been transformed, tables pushed aside, creating an open space filled with vampires drinking fresh blood from crystal decanters. Human servants, thralls she realized with disgust, moved among them with dead eyes. And at the center of it all, Adrian held court at table 17. The same table where he'd murdered her. Evelyn's entrance drew immediate attention. Conversations died. Hands moved to weapons. She stood in the doorway letting them see her, alone, unarmed apparently, radiating calculated desperation. Well, Adrian rose slowly, a predator's smile spreading across his face. This is unexpected. Is it? Evelyn walked forward, each step measured. You made me into this. Did you really think I'd stay loyal to the monster who finished what you started? Murmurs rippled through the room. Celeste emerged from the crowd, her eyes gleaming with interest. The king's pet has slipped her leash. How delicious. I'm nobody's pet. Evelyn pulled out the letter, tossed it on table 17. Darian Voss used me. Turned me into an experiment, a warning to others. He keeps me close not to protect me, but to prove what happens when you don't fully commit to the transformation. Adrian picked up the letter, scanned it. His expression flickered, suspicion warring with desire to believe. This could be a trap. It is a trap, Evelyn agreed. For him. He thinks I'm here gathering information for him. He thinks I'm still under his control because he saved me. She let bitterness flood her voice. But I'm done being used. By you. By him. By everyone who thinks I'm too weak to choose my own side. And what side is that? The winning side. She met his eyes directly. Let him see fury instead of heartbreak. You wanted me dead because I was a liability. I'm offering you something better. I'm offering you his trust. He tells me everything. Guard rotations, vulnerabilities when the blood moon weakens him. I can give you everything you need. Adrian circled her slowly, studying. Why would you betray him? He gave you power. He gave me a cage. Evelyn turned, tracking his movement. Half human, half vampire, belonging nowhere. Even if I wanted to forgive what you did, I can't go back to my old life. And Darian makes sure I can never fully become vampire. He keeps me as a monument to his mercy. I'm not a person to him. I'm a political statement. The lie tasted true because parts of it were. She did feel trapped between worlds. She was angry at what she'd become. The trick was channeling real emotions into false conclusions. Adrian stopped in front of her, close enough that she could smell the blood on his breath. If you're lying, then kill me. You tried once already, she smiled coldly. But if I'm telling the truth, you'll have everything you need to take the throne. Darian will be vulnerable in 3 nights during the blood moon. He'll be in the Eastern Tower, alone, meditating. I can lead you straight to him. Exactly the false information Darian had prepared. The bait perfectly laid. Adrian's eyes searched hers. She let him look, kept her expression hard and hurt and hungry. Finally he laughed, that charming sound that had once made her heart flutter and now made her stomach turn. "You've changed," he said. "Good. The weak Evelyn who loved me couldn't survive this world. But this version." He reached out, traced her jaw with one finger. "This version is interesting." Every instinct screamed to pull away, to break his finger, to tear out his throat. Instead she held perfectly still. "I stopped loving you the moment I saw your smile while I died," she said flatly. "Now I just want to win." "Then welcome to the winning team." Adrian gestured broadly to the room. "The Crimson Schism accepts your pledge. 3 nights from now you'll guide us to Darien Voss. And when he falls you'll have earned your place in our new order." Celeste raised a glass. "To betrayal, the only constant in an immortal life." The room erupted in cheers. Evelyn smiled and accepted their toasts, playing the role perfectly. In her ear, Darien's voice whispered one word: "Good." The trap was set. Now they just had to survive springing it. The blood moon rose like a wound in the sky. Evelyn led the Crimson Schism through the Citadel's corridors, playing her part flawlessly. 20 vampires followed her, with Adrian at the front, his new sword gleaming in the crimson moonlight. They moved in silence, predators stalking prey they believed was cornered. "The Eastern Tower," Evelyn whispered, pointing ahead. "He's alone. Weakened. This is your moment." Adrian's hand caught her arm. "You'll come with us. If this is a trap, then I die first." "I know." She met his eyes without flinching. "I'm counting on your success, Adrian. It's the only way I survive." He studied her for a heartbeat longer, then nodded. They advanced. The tower door stood ajar. An invitation. Red moonlight spilled through tall windows, casting everything in shades of blood and shadow. And there, kneeling in the center of the chamber, head bowed in meditation, was Darien Voss. Too perfect. Too easy. Adrian should have known then. But arrogance had blinded him. "Vampire King," Adrian announced, stepping into the chamber with his sword raised. "Your reign ends tonight." Darien didn't move. Didn't even look up. "I said," Adrian started forward. "I heard you." Darien's voice was calm as a still lake. "I was just wondering if you'd notice before it was too late." The doors slammed shut. Every window, every exit, sealing with iron bars that materialized from the walls themselves. Ancient magic, woven into the Citadel's bones, springing to life. "What?" Adrian spun, saw his forces trapped, saw Evelyn standing apart from them. Saw her smile. "Did you really think," Darien said, rising to his full height, "that I wouldn't know every move you planned?" The weakness was gone. He stood like a king, like death itself given form and purpose. "The blood moon doesn't weaken me here. It strengthens me. This tower was built during a blood moon 400 years ago. Its power feeds me." He'd been lying. All of it strategic misdirection. "Evelyn." Adrian's voice cracked with disbelief. "You. I told you survival was more dangerous than death," she said quietly, drawing the weapons hidden beneath her coat. "You just weren't listening." Chaos erupted. The Crimson Schism attacked as one, but Darien had prepared for this. The walls themselves seemed alive, shadows coalescing into barriers, forcing the vampires into smaller groups. Easy to isolate, easy to eliminate. Darien moved through them like a storm through paper, centuries of combat experience making him unstoppable. But his eyes kept tracking one target. Adrian, who was running straight for Evelyn. "You lied." Adrian's sword came down in an arc meant to sever her head. "Everything, another lie." Evelyn blocked with her blade, the impact sending shockwaves through her arms. "Now you know how it feels." They fought across the tower chamber, steel screaming against steel. Adrian was stronger now, faster but reckless. His attacks were all rage and no thought, wild swings meant to overwhelm. Evelyn had learned from a king. She dodged, parried, waited. Darien's lessons whispered through her mind. Precision. Control. Strike when they don't expect it. I loved you, Adrian screamed, pressing forward. I gave you everything. You gave me nothing but lies. Evelyn's blade found his shoulder, drawing black blood. Every smile, every touch, every promise. Calculated manipulation. That's what love is. Adrian laughed, wild and broken. Using each other until someone wins. I just won first. No, Evelyn's voice went cold as winter. You lost the moment you thought I'd stay broken. She could see it now, the boy beneath the monster. Young, desperate, so terrified of being nothing that he destroyed everything real to chase the appearance of power. Part of her, a small dying part, almost pitied him. The rest wanted blood. Their blades locked. Adrian's face was inches from hers, twisted with fury and something that might have been regret. I made you, he hissed. You exist because I chose to create you. You tried to murder me, Evelyn corrected. Darian made me survive it. There's a difference. She saw his eyes flick sideways, toward the windows, calculating escape. Always running. Always choosing himself. In that moment of distraction, Evelyn moved. Her hand shot out, grabbed the crystal wine glass sitting forgotten on a side table. The same style as the restaurant. She smashed it against the stone, creating a jagged edge, and drove it upward with all her half-turned strength. The broken glass pierced through Adrian's ribs, angled perfectly toward where his heart still beat its slow, undead rhythm. His eyes went wide. The sword fell from his hands. You wanted eternity, Evelyn whispered, holding him as he began to crumble. Now you'll spend it remembering this. Adrian's mouth moved, trying to form words. Maybe an apology. Maybe another justification. Maybe just her name. She'd never know. He disintegrated into ash, scattering across the floor like snow made of shadows. Evelyn stood over the remains, glass still in her hand, breathing hard. Darian appeared beside her, his own clothes splattered with the blood of defeated enemies. The crimson schism lay in pieces around them. It's done, he said quietly. Evelyn looked at the ashes that had been Adrian Vale. Felt nothing. No triumph, no grief. Just empty. Yes, she said. It's done. The Celestine burned. Evelyn watched from the street as flames consumed the 97th floor. Orange light dancing against the pre-dawn sky. Fire crews had arrived too late. Or perhaps just late enough. The restaurant where her old life had died was becoming ash, just like Adrian. Fitting, Darian said beside her, hands in his pockets, expression unreadable. Though dramatic, the schism's remaining members set it ablaze when they heard their leaders had fallen. Scorched earth policy. Will there be others? Evelyn asked. Other factions, other rebellions. Always he glanced at her. For 100 years have taught me that peace is a temporary arrangement between conflicts. But perhaps the gaps between wars can grow longer. Perhaps that's the best we can hope for. They stood in silence, watching the fire die as the sun began to rise. Evelyn felt it, the pull of dawn, her human blood urging her toward sleep while her vampire nature recoiled from the coming light. Caught between as always. The council wants you dead, Darian said conversationally. Both sides, actually. The Vampire Council called you an abomination that proves transformation should never be interrupted. The human government calls you a weapon that proves vampires can't be trusted. They're drafting execution orders as we speak. Evelyn's jaw tightened. And what do you call me? Mine. The word hung between them, heavy with meaning she wasn't sure she wanted to examine. I rejected both orders, Darian continued. Told the Vampire Council that you're under my protection as my bonded ally. Told the human government that executing you means declaring war on my court. Neither side is happy. You'd start a war to protect me? She couldn't keep the disbelief from her voice. Darian turned to face her fully, and for once, his mask had slipped. She could see exhaustion there and something dangerously close to hope. You spent 3 days playing traitor, surrounded by enemies who would have torn you apart if they'd sensed a single lie. You faced the man who destroyed you and didn't hesitate when the moment came. You survived what should have killed you twice. His voice dropped lower. I've lived for centuries and met perhaps 5 people with that kind of steel. None of them were half-turned accidents. So yes, Evelyn, I'd start a war. Though I'm hoping it won't come to that. Why not? Because I have a better idea. He pulled a small box from his coat. Ancient wood, carved with symbols that seemed to move in the dying firelight. This contains a bond mark. Old magic, older than the citadel. If you accept it, you'll be recognized as my equal in the eyes of both courts. Not a pet. Not an experiment. My heir and partner in ruling. Evelyn stared at the box. That's insane. I'm barely a month old in this life. I don't know your politics, your history, You know survival. You know strategy. You know how to stand in the space between 2 worlds and refuse to fall. Darian's eyes held hers with burning intensity. I don't need another vampire lord who's spent centuries playing power games. I need someone who remembers what it was like to be human. Someone both sides can see themselves in. Someone who proves coexistence isn't just possible. It's standing right here. The sun crept higher. Evelyn could feel her skin beginning to tingle, not quite burning but warning her of the danger. Darian noticed, moved to shade her with his own body, unflinching as dawn light touched his sleeve and smoke rose from the fabric. You're burning, she said. I'll heal. Answer me, Evelyn. Will you stand with me? Will you be the bridge between our peoples? Or will you let them execute you for being what they made you? She thought of Adrian's ashes. Of the girl who'd loved him, naive enough to believe in simple futures. That girl was dead, gone as surely as if the poison had finished its work. But someone new stood in her place. Someone forged in betrayal and tempered in blood. Someone who belonged nowhere, which meant she could belong everywhere. Evelyn reached out and took the box. On one condition, she said. I'm not your heir. I'm your equal. Partner, not successor. I make my own choices. Darian's smile was real this time, transforming his face into something almost human. Agreed. She opened the box. Inside, 2 rings of dark silver, inscribed with words in a language dead before nations existed. She took one, offered him the other. They exchanged rings as the sun rose fully, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Vampire and human, monster and mortal, king and survivor. The bond snapped into place like a lock finding its key. Evelyn gasped as power flooded through her, not changing her but completing her. The half-turned girl who belonged nowhere became the bridge between 2 worlds. Darian's hand found hers, cool and steady. Ready? He asked. Evelyn looked one last time at the burning restaurant, at Adrian's final monument going up in smoke, at the life she'd lost and the future she'd claimed. I didn't look back, she said quietly, echoing his words from the tower. Good. They turned together as dawn broke fully across the city. Her first sunrise is something neither monster nor human, but something entirely new. The first hybrid ruler, standing beside the vampire king. Born from betrayal, forged in vengeance, walking into an uncertain future with her eyes wide open and her hand in his. Behind them, the Celestine collapsed in a shower of sparks and ash, the past finally consuming itself. Ahead the city waited, human and vampire alike, watching to see what she would become. Evelyn smiled. She'd show them. The end.